there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. To that like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. If you're not yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, please also do that while you're here. Let's get into it. We are both in the state of Connecticut right now. Norlander at home. Yep. I'm in Stamford. I've been on CBS Sports HQ all night. Norlander was with us as well. You probably heard night one of the NBA draft. First 30 picks are in the book. Lots of different storylines. Let's just dive right in. Let's start right at the top. Atlanta did as expected, which is select Zaccharie Risacher with the number 1 overall pick. He's, I think even people who love him would acknowledge this, not your typical high upside number 1 pick. I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe him as a future face of the franchise. He's more of a 3-and-D prospect who, you hope can be a high-level 3-and-D player in the NBA. But the ceiling does seem to be, and I stress the word seem because you never know, a little lower on him than typical number 1 picks. Let me start you with this one. Do you think Atlanta is going to look up in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 and go, oh, man, we didn't do that right?
Yes, I think. And I want to be clear on this here. By no means, and not even just because last year was a Wemby year and it was exception to the rule. I am willing, open, able, wanting to talk big on projections on top 3 picks that don't come from the college ranks here. Risacher just to me is not that player. I do think that Atlanta will get to the end of his first contract and realize that it didn't draft the best player in this draft. So it goes. Here it is. And yes, I think by pure nature of Risacher leading the draft, actually Risacher and Sarr being 1-2, it's only the 3rd time ever we have had an NBA draft where the top 2 players had not played a game in college ever. 0-1 and 0-3 were the other 2. So it has actually been a minute since we had to wait until 3 to see a player get taken off the board who has spent time on American soil playing college hoops. But the intriguing thing with Risacher is this. I had said it earlier in the day on HQ, and then I know Woj also said it minutes before the draft happened.
And that's been a big problem for years. Woj taking what you say.
I appreciate him amplifying what I tech. Hey, let me have my scoop. I technically put this out first before anyone.
Okay. Go ahead.
The reality is that the Hawks had Risacher 1 and Reed Sheppard 2 on their board for a while now, and Sheppard's chance to actually go number 1, I think, was better than people realized. But having said that, as it was laid out to me, Risacher was, comfortably number 1, and part of that was Landry Fields, as it was laid out to me, not just with Atlanta, but I think people around that top pick and around the league speculating that, listen, he's a second-year GM. This is the safe, quote unquote, safe pick. Like going into it, the floor might be higher for Risacher, maybe than anyone else. But it is weird to have the first 2 picks be more defense than offense guys. And certainly like the idea of a potential maybe all-star down the way. But, we have to start with the first pick, and it is Risacher winning out. But the quote that I shared on the draft show tonight, which hung out to me heavy, was that I was told that with Atlanta, there was a lingering question here, and it was on Reed Sheppard. It was, hey, is it possible that we might be passing on Mahomes here? And by that, they don't think that Reed Sheppard's going to come along and change the league the way Patrick Mahomes has changed the NFL. It's more, hey, is this guy really going to be one of the 3 best shooters in the NBA by the end of his first contract? And if that's the case, and we knew that, like, we should be taking him, but they ultimately balked on that. They took the guy with more length, with more size, who on balance probably is going to wind up probably being a better defender, certainly on ball than Sheppard. But that was the intriguing part with me. And then Sheppard winds up going to Houston at number 3. There was a ton of noise on Houston if it would trade it or not. Usually when you get this, it doesn't happen. The same thing was with Memphis, and when it moved up to get Klingan, that did not happen at all. We'll get to Memphis in a little bit, obviously. But all that just wound up being noise. It didn't happen. Didn't matter. And Sheppard went to the spot where I think most people expected him to go at number 3. And I guess that was really the only drama there at the top of the draft.
I guess with Atlanta, like I should start by saying, we'll see. Who knows? Like anybody who talks about any draft for any period of time will have players that he's right about or she's right about and players that he or she is wrong about. That includes me, you, Adam Finkelstein, Kyle Boone, Pat Riley, Sam Presti. It doesn't matter. We all miss. We've all been wrong about prospects and right about prospects. So, I'll keep an open mind about it. But just fundamentally, I don't like the approach. Like the safe pick with the number one pick in the draft, when you're a franchise going nowhere, just kind of caught in the middle of the Eastern Conference, I don't know that I'd be making a safe pick. I'd want to take the big swing. And it's, I sort of double taked when I heard you on HQ earlier tonight say that there are people in Atlanta's franchise who are worried they are passing on, perhaps the Patrick Mahomes or of the NBA or something like that. That's a crazy thing to say out loud. Because if I worked in Atlanta's front office and I was like, man, are we passing on Patrick Mahomes? I'd be like, oh, hold up.
Well, I was told this notion is why they, I think more seriously considered that than people might have given credibility to it.
Yeah. So, how about this? I was asked earlier in the week, I think in DC radio, because apparently there was a prop Reed Shepherd going first overall and it paid a pretty good number, like a lot of plus money. And there was like, you sprinkle. And I was like, I don't know that he's going to go number one overall, but I can tell you there are franchises who believe he's the best prospect. And it wouldn't surprise me if anybody took him number one because I would take him number one. So it's not surprising for me to hear that Atlanta was seriously considering it. But I think they kind of got pushed into this direction of Risacher a little bit as well. It starts with Alex Sarr won't come and work out for you. Mm-hmm. And then if you were committed to moving forward with Trae Young, is Reed Shepherd a good fit with Trae Young? So then you might be going, all right, Reed doesn't work with Trae. Sarr hates us. What are we doing now? Is it Klingan or Risacher? That really might be where you're at. So they might have been pushed this direction by a couple of different variables, but I would have, if you put me in charge of Atlanta, I'll just go on record. I'll say this. When we unexpectedly got the number one pick in this draft, I think I would have at that moment, if I had identified Reed Shepherd as one of the best prospects and perhaps the best prospect in this draft, and I thought he's not a fit with Trae Young, and this Trae Young thing ain't really working the way I envisioned anyway, I might be willing to move off of Trae Young, focus around Reed Shepherd, and build it around him.
That'd be something else, man. And kind of gathering stuff over the past couple of weeks here. I think part of the story with Atlanta as well is they unexpectedly get the number one pick. This is a team that was in contention, making the playoffs, but they're not a title contender. And then they get the pick. They fly over to France. They see Risacher. They obviously have him in the building. The workout apparently goes really, really, really well. And ultimately, like Risacher, who you had number one a year ago. I didn't even
remember. Our boss Adam Silverstein showed me that, tweeted it. I did not remember it.
Oh gosh. Well, I imagine you're going Cooper Flag right now for 25.
Oh yeah, it's done. Cooper Flag. Finally, back to the good old days when Americans went number one in the draft.
Exactly. Anyway, the picture I'm trying to broadly paint and too simply here with Atlanta is this is a franchise that was in no way expecting to get the number one pick. It got the number one pick. It did as much diligence as it possibly could. And ultimately it went with the guy that I quote unquote consensus had as the top prospect in the draft. We'll see if he winds up being the best one. I actually don't think that he will. I don't think he'll be a top 3 player in the draft, but whatever. I'm an idiot. What do I know? And it's possible, by the way, that the best prospect might have gone third. GP liked Reed Shepherd more than anyone else, but that was a pretty big storyline. Outside of number one who went there, I got to think that the next biggest storyline is the two bigs that met in the national championship game and the unexpected proximity they were to being drafted next to each other. Klingan goes 7 to Portland. I said it on HQ. I'm going to do it again here on the pod. Shouts to you, Kyle Boone. GP, if you had it as well, I just don't remember that off the top of my head. All I know is Kyle Boone has been on the Donovan Clingan will be drafted by Portland for a while. And there was a ton of noise about Clingan going 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 and teams moving up. It straight up did not happen. Booney, Strongjaw, you got it right. Kudos to you. He's going to be prominently featured on Thursday, obviously, with our day 2 coverage, both on the draft show and leading up to him. Please go read Kyle Boone's work and his mock draft as we get ready for the second night. Then you have Edey that goes 9 to Memphis. And the noise with Memphis was that it might well move up to try and get Klingan. That doesn't happen. And meanwhile, the whole time it's sitting there and it takes Edey. And I do find it in the moment, GP. I find it apropos in this regard. I believe that Clingan is a better pro prospect going into this draft than Edey, but also believe that they are very, very close. Edey vastly outplayed Clingan head to head, and every single one of his numbers and practically every single thing he did at the combine, Edey did was better than Clingan. But there are certain things that Clingan can do defensively that Edey can't quite match at this point. That being said, I was actually, and I sent out a tweet on this, which, by the way, the people that just live to absolutely hate Edey online, they came back out of the woodwork there, because I said, in essence, it's an awesome thing for college basketball and the NBA that by definition and accomplishment, once in a generation player. I mean, there's been like 5 dudes that have ever won back-to-back National Player of the Year awards, right? Someone who did that was rewarded with a top 10 pick as a traditional big man in this modern NBA. And it wasn't just the college accomplishments that got it done. I'm going off of what I had some teams tell me, and then Edey's camp tell me. He was apparently just absurd in every single one of these workouts that he did. Like, relentless. There was, if you had a certain idea of what you thought about Zach Edey going in from a team perspective, when he left your building, your impression of him and how you viewed him as a prospect went up. That's what I was told, not just on Edey's camp side, but by other teams. And I'm almost positive that the teams that were sitting there at 12, 13, 15, 18, 19 were stunned that Edey went 9, because they thought that no one was actually going to take the chance there. I thought that was a pretty cool story, man. He deserves it. There was an awesome video that was sent out by Purdue. In fact, Nada, do you have that real quick? If you're watching on video, I don't know if GP's seen this yet. Edey got the green room invite. He did not go to New York. You would have noticed that if you were watching draft coverage there. He stayed back in West Lafayette. Nada, I think you have this. Can you cue this up real quick so GP can see it?
With the 9th pick in the 2024 NBA Draft, the Memphis Grizzlies select Zach Edey.
Really cool video there, and he's in West Lafayette. He's with his mom. He's with his teammates. Mason Gillis, who's going to play at Duke next year, flew back to West Lafayette to be there with them, and I think it really speaks to who he is as a dude. I thought it's a simple moment, but it is so very Zach Edey. Clingan at 7, Edey at 9, to me was the second biggest storyline of the night, in particular because Edey took a jump and got picked 3 to 5 to 7 spots higher than people thought.
It had been a rough month for Canadians. I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you've been paying attention. It's been a rough go for Canadians lately. They've been called all kinds of things. All right? It's been rough. But then here's the nice thing happening for a Canadian. Zach Edey goes in the top 10 after being a 2-time National Player of the Year. It's my new coworker. That's my new coworker.
That's true. He is going to your franchise, man.
Have you seen this?
I've seen it.
Chris Vernon.
Oh, I tweeted back at Chris Vernon. I go, but Vernon, what if I told you I think he's a cross between Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid or whatever that classic. I tweeted it at him tonight. He hasn't gotten back to me. I was like, hold on. You don't have to disappear. You don't have to disappear just because Memphis drafted Zach Edey. What if I told you he's a mix between Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis?
Vernon's a little like me in the sense that we have, he's got the Ringer podcast with Kevin O'Connor. I've got the Eye on College Basketball podcast, CBS Sports with you. But then we also have our Memphis shows with like we are literally employees of the Grizzlies. And Vernon is on the Ringer podcast at some point in the pre-draft process, and he's like, if they draft Zach Edey at number 9, he just hates the idea of it.
He said, "You'll never see me again."
So now he's got to resolve that. I'm not going to speak out of both sides of my mouth. This is, I don't think, what I would have done. I do a mock draft. I could have at any point decided to put Zach Edey at number 9. I never did it. So I can't sit here and say, I think it's brilliant. But I will say this is a front office that has gotten way more right than wrong since they took over. It is obvious that they've liked Zach Edey for a while. You might remember at the Combine. Like Zach Edey publicly said, I know the Grizzlies like me. All right. That seems meaningful. On a night like tonight, And though he isn't a modern big, and there are some real concerns that, you can't talk about them and make them go away. They're going to be there. You'll see them. But there is a place in the NBA for just big people. Like, you know who the Grizzlies starting center was for the previous 2 years when they were the 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs back-to-back years? It was big, giant Steven Adams. He's not a modern center. He's not a stretch it out to the three-point line guy. But you know what he could do, among other things? Really set incredible big-bodied screens for free up Ja Morant over and over and over again. So I'm interested in seeing how they plan to use him. I'm certain they've got a good idea about it. But all of the reporting was that they were interested in going up to 3 or 5 or 6 to try to get Donovan Clingan. And as it turned out, they just sat there at 9 and they take Zach Edey. And it might be a little high relative to big boards and mock drafts. But the truth is, this is always the reality when it comes to this type of stuff. You will never look back at Zach Edey if he's good in the NBA and go, yeah, he's really good. And man, it worked out, but I still don't know if they should have taken him 9th. If he's good, you won't care where you took him. If he's bad, you will be disgusted by where you took him. And that goes for nearly every player selected in the top 10.
I don't think now we're both weighing on Edey, and I'm not just in on Edey as just an all-time college great because that's what he is. I can't get past how big, skillful he is, getting better, and just a dominant presence. Like, I had multiple different teams tell me the thing about Edey that intrigues me so much. In fact, I had someone in the front office of a team that was picking in the back half of the first round tonight that was like, I love the fact that Memphis had the balls to pick Edey at 9. Like, this GM was in love with this idea that there was actually a team willing to say, no, we're going to go do this. He was undeniably dominant, and I'm not saying that dominance will continue, but I do think that the skills that he has and his ability as a teammate, smart player, I just think there's a space there. Now, if Edey doesn't work, in particular, if like Clingan and Edey both don't work, and we're going to need, you would think, a couple of years, but you never know, I guess. Then we might have a real situation that we've got to talk about here with all this stuff, because Edey's as accomplished as anyone else. And I think, understandably, there was sellers on the idea that, okay, modern NBA, he can't really step out there and guard in the pick and roll. He's going to get lost in space, get played off the floor. I get there might be some of that, but come on, man. There's not a player like him, and that's what teams were telling me. It's like, from a prospect perspective, there just hasn't been, and I don't know when there will be again, be a dude that's 7'2", 7'3", 7'4". Not he's that big. And he was statistically as impressive a player as we've seen in college basketball in back-to-back seasons in decades. You just don't know when you're going to get a guy like this again. So why the hell not try and take a flyer on him if you got that pick in that spot?
I like the balls, as you put it, that it takes to do something like this. Like, this is one that this was one that hangs with you if you get it wrong. Like, if you move up to 5 to take Donovan Clingan, and it does. First off, everybody says you're brilliant tonight. All right, so there's the first part of it. Everybody just says, oh, man, the Grizzlies are geniuses. And then if it doesn't work out, nobody ever looks back and goes, what were they doing? Because it's like, we all thought they should go up and get Clingan. We all were fans of Clingan. This is one where if it doesn't work out, you put your neck out there. If it doesn't work out, not only is everybody going to say it was wrong and stupid, they'll say, and I told you it was wrong and stupid when they did it. Go back and check the tape, right? So I actually respect when front offices do stuff like this. You got to have a real conviction about somebody to run counter to what most other people think. And the Grizzlies have done that multiple times under this front office. And arguably, they went for it like, hey, we like this guy, even if most other evaluators, at least who put mock drafts on internets, they don't seem to like him as much as we do, but we like this guy. We believe in this guy, and we're taking him. You might not have taken him 19th, but we're comfortable taking him at 9. I don't know whether it'll work, but I like that they have a conviction about it.
Yep, there's a lot of picks that happened on Wednesday night that are just, frankly, just nondescript. They don't have a big profile. So the third biggest storyline is a guy who was the second best player in the sport last season to Zach Edey, and that's Dalton Knecht, who dropped all the way to 17. This is the second consecutive year in which there was a player that had top 5-ish buzz. Last year, Cam Whitmore was really top 5. Knecht was more like in that 6 to 8 range. Dalton Knecht wound up slipping all the way to 17. Heard from a couple people around the league, and the assumption here was, one, there was a string there. Let me read out the teams. Once you got into like the 12 to 16 or the 11 to 16 range, Bulls, Thunder, Kings, Blazers, that went to the Wizards, the Heat, which I kind of don't buy. They took Ware, though. It was a fit situation more than anything else. Some of it was age. Maybe some of it was a little bit of concern on the defense there. This is stunning to me. I am the guy who had the big board. I think that Dalton Knecht is positioned to potentially have the best career of anyone in this draft. I'm that much of a believer in his shooting ability at his size, his athleticism. He can get into the paint. I do think he is a competent enough and will continue to be a competent enough defender. And how about this, Parrish? The fact that JJ Redick in his first season was, and I'm going to use this word with intention, gifted Dalton Knecht, a guy who had what we thought, at least from, how about this, evaluators outside looking in, not NBA front offices, Knecht was a top 10 grade across the board. He falls all the way to 17, a genuinely surprising plot line that unfolded there. Your thoughts on the fact that we had the second best player, undeniable first team All-American, who did have late bloomer, to say the least, winds up slipping to the back half of the first round.
Yeah, I mean, you can use his age against him if you want to, but when your best player is about to turn 40, I don't care if your rookie's, you know, I don't care if your rookie's 24 or whatever he is. Like, you need people who are ready to play with LeBron James tomorrow. And I think Dalton Knecht is. This is my favorite pick, or at least one of my favorite picks in the first round, because you just look at, say, what Milwaukee did, right? Milwaukee has the 23rd pick in this draft, and they take A.J. Johnson, who has potential and all of that stuff.
95% of the people listening to the show have no idea who A.J. Johnson is.
He ain't going to help the Milwaukee Bucks at all next season, all right? So if you are Giannis or Dame, and you just watched the Celtics win a championship, the Knicks go out and add Mikal Bridges and reportedly re-signed OG Anunoby. The Celtics, oh, by the way, added somebody who can help them with the 30th pick in the draft in Baylor Shireman. And then you go at 23 in Milwaukee and draft AJ Johnson. Like, there are certain franchises, like, say, Washington, where you should be taking big swings on young prospects because you're trying to hit. And then there's places like Milwaukee, Minnesota, Philadelphia, the Lakers, where you should be trying to get somebody who can help you now. And I think the Lakers knocked that out of the park. You ready for this? As long as you're sitting at 17 and waiting to see who falls to you, I don't think they could have grabbed a player at 17 better equipped to help them next year than they grabbed with Dalton Knecht. I don't know that I'm hand in hand with you thinking he's going to be the best player in this draft in, say, 3 to 5 years, but I think he's going to be one of them, and certainly one of the better rookies. And if you've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis for only so many more years, this is the type of player I want to put with them. He's a shooter. That's ideal, but he's not just a shooter. He's much more than that.
You get to 17 in the draft, almost anyone will tell you are hoping at that point.
Yeah.
But my goodness, man, the fact that Knecht falls that far. So the players that were picked around him, Bub Carrington, 14, Khalil Ware, 15. That's a fascinating fit, honestly, with Ware going higher than people thought. And then he goes to the one franchise that's going to hold him as accountable as you could possibly expect. McCain is 16, Knecht 17, and then De Silva from Colorado's 18. Jacoby Walter goes to Toronto at 19 there. Knecht seems, come on, man. Like, I get it's the LeBron and Anthony Davis show, and they're beholden to Austin Reeves to a certain extent. I get a lot of that, but he just feels like he's going to be able to step in and be one of the 5 or 6 most relevant rookies in the league next season, going to a spot that could really, really use him, that needs his shooting there. So good on Redick. I said it on HQ. I'll back it up here. Redick averaged like 12.2, 12.3 points for his career, which is actually a little bit lower than I thought when I went to look it up. Dalton Knecht will I think he'll finish his career having averaged more per game than JJ Redick. I don't know if his career will last as long. I don't know if he'll be a 42% three-point shooter the way that Redick was. He's not the same exact kind of player, but talk about a coach who seems really fit to be able to work with a guy. And Redick's, he's just a few podcast episodes removed from playing in the NBA, my man. So that's a really awesome fit. And that became a pretty big story. The fact that he slid there, I don't think there was nothing there with the medical. I think part of it was age, which to me is silly. Part of it was fit, whatever. But that was a big time storyline.
Yeah,
there.
and I'm imagining Dalton Knecht was disappointed on some level, at least going through the process. You might be thrilled when you land where you land, but going through the process, that can't be fun. It happens to somebody every year. You walk into a room with one idea of how this night's going to go, and then it turns into a nightmare pretty quickly, and you're sliding, and you don't know why, and you didn't expect it. But ultimately, you do land in LA. Like you realize, the NBA season is going to start. None of this stuff has been announced yet, but there's going to be an opening night, the way there's always an opening night, like on a Tuesday or something.
Yeah.
And it'll be a doubleheader, and the Lakers are typically a part of it. And Dalton Knecht's going to come off the bench and get shots up. Like that's probably going to happen. And so on some level, you're disappointed because you thought you might go 7th, and instead you go 17th. Again, with the rookie scale, it cost him real money. Like he lost real money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one side of it. Like
yes.
There's a rookie pay scale in place, and if you pick 7th, you get paid much more money than if you get picked 17th. So financially, it's not a great night for him. But I think maybe you can find some solace in the idea that I'm about to go play for the most glamorous franchise in the NBA, beside the all-time scoring leader and Anthony Davis. And, I know the Lakers aren't going to be projected to win a championship, but they'll be good. They were good post-trade deadline this past season. And if you're Dalton Knecht, if you woke up this morning and somebody told you you're going 17th, that don't sound good. You woke up this morning and somebody says, hey, I can't tell you how it happens, but you're going to be a Los Angeles Laker. I like that a little more.
We both really like Knecht. I'm going to say he gets removed from our next segment here. We're going to take a break. But after that, we're going to talk about the fits and the picks that we like most, and then a couple of our head-scratching ones, but not at first. Even at this late hour, we need a word from our partners.
All right, we both love Dalton Knecht. I think we've made that clear. So like you suggested, let's remove him from the conversation, put him over here. Favorite picks of the night? Like when they came off the board, you were like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah, let's go 3 apiece. Favorite picks, favorite fits. I think the first one I'm going to mention, because I'm going to try and go from the top, and I'm avoiding top 5 in general. I think the first one I'm going to mention we're going to agree on. I don't know if you'll pick someone before this. I'm going to say the Kings getting Devin Carter. I said it on our HQ draft show. I get Jaime Jaquez to the Heat vibes from this one in terms of how he fits on this franchise, the impact I think and the opportunity he'll get in his first season, the way that they will need his on-ball defense. And was it Avery that mentioned Davion Mitchell first on the show?
Yep. In
terms of the Kings had an opportunity a few years back, Davion Mitchell coming off obviously the huge year with Baylor and used a high pick on him. And that, again, this is just one example of many. Like it just hasn't worked out the way that you would have thought with that kind of pick. But they think that Carter, and he's not the same player, obviously, but what he can be reliably defensively and then all of his offense is going to be big time. So mine first, I would say Carter is one. We're not including Knecht. I would say I would probably go McCain to Philadelphia, I think, because of how I think he'll be used. If they use him right, I really like it a lot. I put him there. And then Terrence Shannon Jr. to the Timberwolves, I am all the way in on. I wasn't surprised he went in the first round, and his ability to just be a blaze in transition, a really good athlete. If he can get back to being the kind of defender he was at the start of his college career in particular, I think that's big. He is just to me, he's the player, even more so Dillingham went to the Timberwolves as well. That was the pick at 8 that's first rated out. He's going there. That's intriguing, sure. But to me, Terrence Shannon Jr. stepping into that roster I do think he's got a chance to be a real off the bench guy with some impact as they try and really knock on that door heavy, breaking through Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals. So I think those would be my three. Carter, the Kings. I think, I'd go because of McCain's 3-point shooting, and then and Terrence Shannon Jr., the Timberwolves. What are your three?
Well, I'll just double up on some of these. I like the Devin Carter pick. I had him projected in the top 10. If you can get him at 13, that's terrific. I know he's a little older, but Sacramento is one of the franchises that has, I don't want to say disregarded age, but you remember when they went up and took Keegan Murray, I guess, a couple of years ago?
Yep.
Some of the thought process there was, I don't know if he's really the fourth best prospect in this draft, but he's a prospect in this draft who we think can play for us now. We're not bothered by the age, so let's just go that direction. And they do the same thing with Devin Carter here. They got somebody who can help them as a rookie, somebody who can help next season. I like that. I'd go back up near the top of the draft. I think Washington getting Alex Sarr at 2. I know it's sort of a no-brainer at that. It's like almost the Grizzlies taking John Moran at 2. Like once Zion's off the board, this is the guy you take. I think once, Sarr's still on the board and you're picking second, you don't even really have to think about it. You just, unless you're considering Reed Sheppard there. But I like Sarr in Washington. That makes sense to me. I like Reed Sheppard. I don't mean to contradict myself. I guess if I'm speaking in absolutes here, I think Washington should have taken Reed Sheppard because I think he's the best prospect in this draft. But I like Sarr there. I like Sheppard at 3. Stephon Castle at 4 to San Antonio. I don't like that he isn't a shooter yet, and ideally you'd want shooters around Wembanyama, but buddy, having a 6'6" perimeter lockdown defender who then has Wembanyama, maybe the best defensive player in the world for the next decade, standing right behind him. I wish he was a 40% 3-point shooter, but he brings everything else to the table. I didn't mind that one there. I like Jared McCain to Philadelphia. Like you want to put shooting around Joel Embiid? Well, here's a guy who's a knockdown shooter, can play on or off the ball. And then Portland taking Donovan Clingan. I think everybody loves that, but it's still worth pointing out. Not only did they get a guy who was, in consideration to go number 1 overall, according to most, you get him at 7. To me, this is the most interesting part of that. They stayed patient and got him at 7. They recognized at some point, maybe we don't have to go up to get him, even though the whole world is talking like, if you want Donovan Clingan, you might need to go up to 3, if not 3, 5, if not 5, 6. They said, we'll sit right here. And they let him fall all the way to them at 7. That was a strategy that I don't know if it was foolproof. It could have blown up on you a little bit, but it worked out. They got a guy most people thought was going higher than 7 at 7, and now they can figure out what to do with the other bigs on the roster.
What were 1 or 2 head scratchers for you? I would argue that there were at least 8 in the first round. College or international, but what were pick out a couple that just have you. If you weren't grading, by the way, if you were willing to go as low as a B+, what were the 2 biggest head scratches?
Are you taking shots at Fink's grades?
No, he was mixing in some C+ in there. I think he gave like 2 A-, which I appreciate.
Yeah, he's a tougher grade giver than I am. That's for sure. I think, don't hold me to this. You can double check me, of course.
Okay.
I think if you look at my last mock draft, of the 30 players I had going in the first round, I believe 26 of them went in the first round.
Okay.
But one of the guys who went in the first round tonight that I wouldn't have had in my top 30, because I wouldn't have had him in my top 40, AJ Johnson. That's the one I just don't understand. Like Milwaukee, you should be thinking along the same lines that the Lakers were thinking about tonight, or the Timberwolves were thinking about tonight, or the Celtics were thinking about tonight. Not how can we add a player, but how can we add a player where when Giannis here's your new teammate, he'll go, oh man, this is exciting. You think Giannis, serious question, you think Giannis Antetokounmpo has any idea who AJ Johnson is?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. And when he starts looking into him, do you think he's going to get excited?
You know what? I feel like Giannis gets excited if he finds the exact ripe mango. So it's possible, but I'm not going to bet on it.
Yeah, I just that's one where the rest of the East is actively getting better, and you didn't try to with your 23rd pick. That might be one again where we look up in 3 years and we go, "Oh boy, had he turned into something." But I don't know that he's going to turn into anything enough to help you next year. And every year of Giannis's and Dame's prime, that you're not doing everything you can do to try to win an Eastern Conference title and by extension a championship. I don't think you're doing the right things.
You gave me one player. You can't give me another one.
Oh, I'm sure I can.
Give me one. I mean, I'll give you 20 to 30 right now. Cavs, Jalen Tyson, Pelicans, Messi. Nuggets get Teron Holmes, Bucks at Johnson, Keyshawn George goes to the Wizards at 24. Pacome.
It was kind of in the middle. It was kind of in the middle of the first round where I started getting confused. I actually like the way we wrapped up. Terrence Shannon to Minnesota makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Like I had him 25th, I think, in my last mock to the Knicks. And the reason I would have thought he made sense for the Knicks, same reason he makes sense for the Timberwolves. These are teams trying to win right now. He's ready to help you win right now. So I like the way it closed. Shannon to the Timberwolves makes sense. Ryan Dunn to the Suns. Hey, here's an elite perimeter defender who doesn't need to shoot.
That's not what we're talking. What do you not like? De Silva to the Magic. You want to crap on it or what?
I'm not going to crap on that.
Jacoby Walter to the Raptors.
Jacoby Walter to the No, I like Jacoby Walter. I'm not going to crap on that.
Khalil Ware to the Heat at 15.
That's one where I think if I were taking a center, I would have rather taken Kyle Filipowski at that point.
Yeah, who is still there, by the way. We'll get to him in a second. He got a green room invite, did not get drafted there. I'll give you mine. There's a number of candidates here. De Silva to the Magic would pop to me personally. Don't
I know what I don't like, and it might sound dumb 3 years from now, because he really could be the best player from this draft. Some people think he will be. Ron Holland to the Pistons. I didn't love
that. How about
that? He goes top 5, but he did score for the Ignite. He just didn't shoot it well, and they never won. Yeah. And those are two things that don't reflect too well on him. Yeah. But there are people I respect. They're not people I agree with on this subject, but there are people I respect who genuinely believe Ron Holland is going to be the best player from this draft. And if he is, then, delete all of this. But just, he's a non-shooter joining a team with a bunch of non-shooters. I don't know how that works.
Yeah. No, I know. It's fascinating. Although he might blend in so well with the Pistons that it just works, but he doesn't provide value for a top 5 pick. There were a couple of those. I did have a few people that were pretty damn insistent that the mock drafts would look kind of foolish by the end of the night. I don't think that necessarily happened, but those people were correct in that. Holland going 5. Very few people had him top 9. Salon going 6 was higher than I saw anywhere. Dillingham was a perceived faller, and he goes 8. Edey obviously to 9 was higher than most people expected. Bugelis was mocked out at top 7. That didn't wind up happening there. Ware at 15 was higher. Connect obviously dropping to where he was a bit of a surprise. Jalen Tyson at 20 was higher than people thought. Guys like Dylan Jones popping into the first round. So there were some surprises, and I like seeing that kind of chaos. I would say De Silva to the Magic is a fit that I don't love. I would say I don't want to say that Dillingham to the Timberwolves isn't a great fit. Maybe it works with everything they've got going there, but I kind of wonder if he gets lost in the mix, mix in the bit there. And then George to the Wizards, Keyshawn George. Finkelstein was pretty critical, and rightfully so, when this pick came down. The Wizards are also weird, man. They're like they're getting all these first round picks and was considered the worst draft in more than a decade, and they're like loading up. I don't know. And it's Washington, like they're continually in purgatory. Some really, really weird stuff there. And as the first round wrapped up, and I'm looking back on this, I don't want this to be the way it is, Parrish. But if you tell me 25 of these guys just are whatever in the NBA, I will believe you. I will.
Well, that's the way. Yes, that's the way.
I know, but like even more so. I know, even more so. But we'll see. It's
all right. Here's a fun game.
Okay.
Name a player you've been talking about for 2 straight months on podcast, HQ, everywhere, who you believe you might genuinely never talk about again after tonight.
You love this game. By the way, I don't think you can hear it, but windows open. Rain coming down pretty hard right now in Connecticut, so I don't think that comes on the mic. But if you hear a little bit of that, there's a storm flying overhead at 1:15 Eastern. I would say the most likely.
Like, will you ever say Jalen Tyson's name again?
I
after
haven't
tonight?
been, but he doesn't count because I haven't been talking about him.
You've never. This is.
I would say
we actually talked about Jalen Tyson on the podcast because of the transfer waiver stuff.
You're right. That's a great call. That's a good callback. I wrote a feature on him. I think there's a chance Cody Williams could fall into that if it doesn't hit the right way. Steph Castle, I'm lower on him. I had a few NBA people. I did an informal survey of, close to a dozen NBA folks. Give me just your 2 or 3 personal guys you think are too high on stock. I think Castle came back as the most common. He's slightly overrated from where he'll be drafted. Keep that in mind.
Will you ever say Keyshawn George's name again after tonight?
I don't. I'll take the over on 0.5, but I also didn't talk about him a ton. I get the nature of the question there. You're fascinated by the people you were determined to
I'm just always fascinated by I know everything. I don't know everything, but I know a lot of things about these people. And after tonight, none of it is useful to me anymore.
Well, you never know what day 2 will bring. And speaking of that, 2 guys got green. Let's wrap with this here. We don't have to go too long here after day 1. Gotta get some sleep and rest up and power up in the morning for day 2 of the draft. 2 guys got green room invites that didn't get picked. And not only did they not get picked, they were both absolutely expecting to get picked before we even got to 25. That's Kyle Filipowski from Duke and Johnny Furphy from Kansas. Since we've even started this podcast, I won't give the team away. But I had someone in a front office text me. I feel like I know the whole book on Filipowski. Is there something out there that you college guys know? Because I'm surprised as hell that he fell this far. I think that sentiment is out there pretty wide, although there were 2 teams in the 20s that I thought would take him. Frankly, I thought the Timberwolves were going to not let him slip past 27. That didn't happen. It is surprising. And this is a situation, by the way, that we haven't had before, because normally the draft is one night. So if you're in the green room and you stick around to pick 31 or 34, well, you're still going. Now, these guys got dolled up, all this stuff. And dude, and also, I truly don't care on this, but I did wonder about this specifically for this year. NBA, you're just inviting too many people. Like, if you want to give everyone the best possible experience of their life, I get it. Like, you want to have these green room invites. However, once you get to that 20, 21 number, you do your best to get your intel from all the teams so you avoid the situation. It is unavoidable once you hit a certain number, because it's going to be need and fit, and you're going to have a situation where guys, frankly, it is embarrassing. Like, you get this huge night. Filipowski unquestionably thought that he was going to be going anywhere between 13 and 21 or 22. He doesn't get taken. Furphy is this flash in the pan, viable pro prospect out of Kansas whose stock seemingly jumped high. Although I mentioned before on the Castle stuff, Furphy, I got a couple of votes back on him as well. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, that actually, it bears out. Kansas had a scheduled Zoom media availability with Bill Self that it sent out word earlier in the day, and then lo and behold, in the night, Furphy doesn't get picked. They have to cancel the damn thing and wait for him to get picked tomorrow. So those are 2 big names on the board. 1 GP, if you got thoughts on either of those, I'll take them. And then guys that are out there that you are most intrigued by, or you think are worth being picked in the first 4 to 6 players or so once we get to Thursday.
Well, I think Filipowski should come off the board very quickly.
I think he should be gone. Personally, honestly, I don't know why he hasn't been.
Yeah, and now with some time in between picks 30 and 31, there's got to be a franchise that's out there hey, can we move up and go get him? We didn't think this guy's gonna be available here. What's the price? Let's go do it. I think he comes off the board pretty quickly. As for what I'm surprised by this. The guy survived a court storming, for crying out loud.
I agree.
To not be rewarded on night 1 of the draft after surviving a court storming earlier in the year.
I hear you.
Obviously disappointing. So I think he comes off the board pretty quickly. Furphy, these are 2 guys who are considered long shooters, but they have other deficiencies. And I don't even want to try to speculate on what the rationale is, because I don't think hardly anybody had Furphy go lasting to the second round, and I don't believe anybody had Filipowski lasting to the second round. So it's confusing, but I do think they come off the board pretty quickly. Another one, and I don't know where I'd rank them exactly, but I didn't have Jamal Shead in my top 30. I would have had him in my top 40.
Yep.
I I just think if you take somebody like that, you're going to feel good about it. I know he doesn't measure a certain way and whatever. I just don't think you're going to regret having Jamal Shead as a second-round pick, a member of your franchise.
Filipowski is surprising to me. I grade him as a top 10 prospect. I did not have Furphy in my top 30, so I don't disagree with him not getting picked. I just know that there's a big surprise there. Tyler Kolek not getting picked doesn't stun me. He had some first-round buzz. However, I think the fact that he is not anything more than a pure point guard, but there's nothing wrong with that. But teams are looking for more and more combo point guards. Can you truly create for yourself? Does he have the size? I would think Kolek will come off the board in the first 5 or 6 picks. I think Jamal Shead's got a decent chance to come off the board in the first 5 or 6 picks. Keep an eye out for them. I believe that Trey Alexander shouldn't be hanging around for too much longer. Neither should KJ Simpson. We'll see about that. I think if you're expecting names that'll be off in the first 5, Tyler Smith out of G League Ignite probably is going to be taken pretty quickly there. And another guy that I really like that I think should be under serious consideration to go in the 30s, although I don't think he will. I'm a big believer in Harrison Ingram's development and ability to adapt and be a really good role player there. So those are just a couple names to look out for. And then obviously we are on Bronny James watch for the 55th pick.
Woo, can't wait.
That feels inevitable. But we'll see. I mean, to be honest, as someone just covering the draft, I'll take anything except that because it's more interesting because now everyone expects the Lakers to take him at 55. So I am rooting for anything except that. If it happens, whatever, I don't care. But it's more interesting if literally any other thing except Bronny James going with the 55th pick Thursday, sometime around GP. I don't know. It better not be 5 minutes between picks again, by the way. If it's shorter, then maybe that's going down. Draft starts at 4. Maybe we're getting out of there by like 5:45 before Bronny gets picked. We'll kind of wait and see, but it's a good year and it's a terrible year to do this for the first time. I mean, the fact that you have Bronny in the second round, he's actually like, from a casual fan standpoint, people are interested in that. So there actually isn't, like, if he wasn't in it, it'd be a hard sell, particularly because it's at 4:00 because the presidential debate is happening on Thursday. If you're wondering why the draft is at 4 for round 2, that's why, because the presidential debate is happening on Thursday night and they weren't going to go up against that there. But otherwise, man, yeah, it's a tough thing for Filipowski and Furphy, man. Like they're gonna get picked. They're gonna have their chances. I think they'll both do fine. But you don't want to be doing that. You show up, you got to go home, and you got to wait a whole another damn, however long it is, 20 hours before you find out who wants to take you.
Like I know this happens in the NFL draft sometimes. Like you go there for night 1, but like this is not an NBA draft thing. This is the first night we've ever split it up. So like typically, if you were supposed to go, you're in the green room, you're supposed to go in the top 20 and you slipped to 33. Like, all right, that just means it's not great, but you were just sitting there another 30 minutes or so. It's fine. This is like, you got to go home and go to bed, wake up tomorrow and then figure out how you're going to do this. What do you do?
Like, is he going? I'm generally like, are they going again? They're wearing the same thing? Like, are they staying home? I don't know what you do in that situation.
I think you stay home or just go to Top Golf or something.
I don't know if you go to Top Golf, but the way some guys are, they're built, they're like, no, I'm going back. I want to walk across that damn stage. I don't know if it's silver, by the way. Is it silver tomorrow or is it the deputy commissioner?
I think we got to have our deputy commissioner.
NBA deputy commissioner. It's Mark something. Mark Tatum.
I think
probably Tatum, right?
Yeah. This will work for the NBA, I guess, because of the Bronny storyline. But every other year, we're not going to have the Bronny storyline. You know what we're going to have every other year? A second round of an NBA draft that most people don't even care about anyway. If I were in charge of this, you do the lottery 1 through 14 on night 1. Right. Get that over at so people aren't talking at 1:24 in the morning. Do 14 picks, celebrate them. Then let's come back and let's do 15 through the end the next day. That's the way you should do this.
Nada's messaging us, and we can get out of here. He's saying the second round tomorrow is at ESPN Studios. Are we talking like where they do First Take? We're talking like Lower Manhattan? It's weird. I don't know. Well, you know what? You know what you should be watching? You should be watching the draft show on CBS Sports HQ. And I mean this in all sincerity. We can get out of here. I loved our show tonight. And if you are looking for some straightforward analysis, no bias, no yucking it up, no random fluff that you don't want in your draft coverage, GP, Avery, Finkelstein were on the desk. The Indefatigable. Or Indefatigable? Which one is it? I always forget. Hakeem Dermish, who I know is listening to this podcast. He might be listening to this podcast on his drive home.
That's what he told me he was going to do.
Really?
That's what he told me he was going to do.
That's Hakeem. Shouts to Hakeem. Have a day, kid.
Hey,
a wonderful, wonderful host. It was a great show. I thought it was as good of a draft show as we've had. in the 6-7 years we've been doing this on HQ, and more to come on Thursday. The prospects aren't as well known. There's not as much juice. I get all that, but if you're just looking for some good context, some good intel, I can't recommend it enough, and I appreciate everyone that took the time to tune in.
Yeah, and don't sell yourself short. You weren't at the desk with us, but you were in a big window. And buddy, I don't even know if you have a proper understanding for how big you were in that window.
I've been in the studio. I'm aware of how big that screen is. I was lording over you guys.
It was very big. It was haunting almost. But you were terrific. You were getting picks right and providing, sourced reporting that we wouldn't have had without you. So you were a big part of it tonight. We had a blast. And just speaking of, shouting out listeners, yeah, Hakeem, but also Alex. Did you see Alex in the chat? This is the comment I just read.
I did. Alex, you can read this, but Alex, join the club. It's literally thousands deep at this point.
Coming from Spotify. So this is always interesting to me. Somebody who listens to us, but does not watch us.
Yeah.
So we're just two voices in this person's car or AirPods or whatever. And Alex says, coming from Spotify, I knew seeing Parrish was a mistake. I was prepared for the white.
Okay. That's progress.
But I was not ready for the glasses. They were ready for the whiteness, which is interesting because often people who come from Spotify to YouTube,
that's right.
They have imagine me a different race.
That is correct.
I cannot, this is sincere. I can't tell how many people have told me, man, I've been listening to you for years. I couldn't believe it when I realized you were white. I get told that. All right. So Alex says,
I never get told that, by the way.
Yeah.
No one's coming to me being like, Norlander, no, with that name, you're white. Never happened.
I'm tricking them out there sometimes. But like when I listen to, because there are podcasts I listen to, not stupid basketball ones, but so like I was listening to a Dateline podcast.
Of course you were. Man,
a couple weeks ago.
You know that you love this stuff. You just can't get enough of the murder.
If I could snap my fingers and end murder, I would do that. And then I'd find something else to watch on TV and listen to in my car. But as long as people are going to get murdered, again, if I could stop it, I would. But as long as people are going to be murdered, I don't see why we don't still make podcasts about it, because it's compelling. So I was listening to this podcast, and there's these characters. They're like, there's this young woman, and she was murdered. And I'm like, well, I got to see what she looks like so I know what we're dealing with here. And it's like, and here's the murder. I was like, well, I got to Google this fella, see what he's looking like. I don't listen to a podcast without knowing exactly who's talking and what they look like and everybody involved, what they look like. I'm a Googler. I Google. So as I'm always surprised when people are like, man, I've been listening to you for years, but never knew what you look like. Because that's just like not something that would happen to me. And I'm sorry, by the way, I look this way. I wish I looked different. Trust me, I wish I looked different more than you wish I looked different.
Okay. Once upon a time, you did. You had the hair.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Oh, buddy, you should have been here 15 years ago.
Oh, I've seen the pictures. I have some of the pictures. What are we talking about?
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was wild.
Alex, you should have been here like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have had hair, no glasses.
Different scene altogether. There we go. That's by the way, 1:28 a.m. Eastern. That is a show.
We're gonna call it a show. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend. Huck, Larnell,
Eve Misi, Jacoby Walter. Throw them in. Why not?
Yeah, throw them in. 2 more Baylor Bears. Hey, and we got another Baylor Bear probably going to be drafted in the lottery next year. All right. So the streak continues. Shouts to Scott Drew.
By the way, a little Baylor fact. I believe if Jalen Bridges gets picked tomorrow, it's either, I'm blowing this, whatever. It's either Baylor's never had 3 picks in the same draft ever, or tonight was the first time they ever had 2 first rounders. That might be it. I don't know if they ever had 2 first rounders before tonight. I can't remember what it is.
I'll text Huck.
Text Huck, see what it says.
I'll text Huck, see what he says. Hey, if you're not subscribed to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast, please subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So do that and then go to bed. Jesus Lord, it's late.
A lot of people are getting this they're getting it. By the way, you're welcome. You got this podcast waiting for you on Thursday morning. And
yeah. Oh, you should be so appreciative.
You should be. Yeah. It's 1:30 in the morning.
What would you have done on your ride to work in the morning without this podcast?
Correct. Come on now.
Hey, congratulations on getting this podcast. And I guess this is what I was trying to say. If you're watching right now, Go
Yeah.
to sleep. If you're live, go
Yeah.
to sleep. It's late. But if you're driving to work, obviously don't go to sleep because that's how accidents happen.
That's
Right.
That's how you become the subject of a podcast.